everyone. My name is Anita Sharma and I welcome you all on Importer Media once again. Our today's Her Research Series guest is Dr. Tanvi Gupta. She is a PhD from IIM Bangalore and a true Mican. She is currently working as an assistant professor in the area of marketing at IIM Udaipur. Welcome, Tanvi.
Thank you so much, Anita, for having me. I'm
Okay.
really honored to be a part of your initiative for women's research.
Thank you so much for accepting our request because we are doing this special series for to celebrate her research because this International Women's Day we are going to celebrate, and we have decided that entire March, the month of March, we are going to do a lot of interactions with um, female researchers, women researchers, and we have named it as Her Research. So yours is one of them. So to begin with, like the moment I started looking at you and I started reading about you, one quote which reminds me of your work actually. So I am going to read that quote first. To look class apart, you have to do something different like a moon. So let me
Okay.
start with your latest achievement, your latest paper, which sets you class apart, your JCR paper, which is Stay Together, Vulnerable Apart. It's the 50-50. It's
Yeah.
A star. How does it feel? Tell me about that feeling first. How this paper happened.
Yeah. I was like, for me, the when I received the news of this paper's acceptance, like the primary emotion that I felt was of a sense of relief,
Uh-huh.
actually, because I had been working on this for a little more than 3 years,
Okay.
and this similar feeling I had got the last time, but that paper actually travels with you in the ups and downs of your life, and at the end when it actually comes out and it gets published, right, you just, for me, the main emotion was that sense of like
Relief.
relief that yes, it's finally there,
Uh-huh.
it's finally
Uh-huh.
out, it's
Uh-huh.
seeing the light of day, and like
Uh-huh.
that was like the primary feeling I got.
Okay. So tell me more about this paper. So what does that mean? Like stay together, vulnerable apart. It's more towards the marketing side. In
Yes.
maybe in, very briefly, if you can share about the paper.
Yeah, so this paper is basically looking at visual branding. So we have actually looked at the visual design features of logo design, and we have specifically looked at the presence or the absence of space within letters in a logo. So it's not just the design aspect in this paper. What we have brought in is the entire cultural aspect, which is looking at how people from different cultures look at the same thing differently, and they interpret the same design differently. So I basically, my background, I have a background in graphics design, like,
Okay.
it was like much before, even before my days at Mica. So I
Hmm.
was into graphics designing, and right from my childhood I was into art and visual design, and plus I was really interested in branding and advertising, that whole space. So
Uh-huh.
that's why I had chosen Mica for my MBA as well. And at Mica it was like a how do I say, like a turning point in my life,
Uh-huh.
where I actually got exposed to market research, consumer behavior, like those fundamental subject, the concepts, right? And it was so fascinating that the whole idea of research and understanding the way people think, the way people interpret things, and the whole aspect of culture, which is more something under the iceberg, which explains what the way people behave and do things, right? So
So was there
that
any
was so
triggering
fascinating.
moment? Was there any triggering moment, or was it a gradual understanding about the
Yeah,
concept
for
and
me,
then?
I think, for me, the not like one moment as such, but I would attribute it to the some of the courses that I did at Mica.
Okay.
So we
Okay.
had I had consumer behavior marketing research. Like Mica had like, unlike other B schools, Mica has specializations in market research, specialization in advertising. So you have a series of courses that go in depth. So I took a specialization in market research. So where I actually learned in depth about different ways to do research, and like there's this consumer insight mining and also it went a lot more nuanced,
Mm.
and that was something that really opened up my mind. And
Mm.
I
And
even like
then,
faculty like Professor Rajneesh Krishna, Professor Matthew, like you had faculty also who really opened up your mind at that school. So that opening up really kind of changed the way I look at things around me.
okay.
And then there is this semiotics, which is like a field which I'm really interested to be a part of, and I have tried to. I got some exposure to it at MICA, and then I've been trying to self-learn it
Uh-huh.
like since then. And this JCR paper is kind of the fundamental ideology from which it comes is semiotics,
Mm.
which is
Mm.
about symbolic meanings associated with
Mm.
different elements, which could be
Mm.
the brand related or anything else. So I was even after MICA, like when I worked in market research, commercial research for
Mm.
3 years.
Mm.
So even there, I tried to pick up a lot of methods and different quantitative and qualitative. And semiotics is like a kind of could be classified as a third bucket where you
Mm.
are not talking to consumers directly, but you are decoding content, visual content, any different kinds of content. So even for this particular paper, I actually one like our first study is just about decoding and analyzing over 500 to 600 logos alone. So we just
Okay.
analyzed logos.
So have you seen
So
Import Hub's logo? Our
yes,
company's logo. Okay.
yes, yes.
So, okay. So what does it
But yeah,
signify?
I didn't analyze it very closely. I just saw
Okay.
it.
Okay.
But yeah,
Now
it's
let's
sleek. Yeah.
okay, let me understand now, because you after Mica you have had some corporate experience. You learned a lot around logos and all. Tell me more about like what made you decide to pursue your PhD. Why research as a choice?
Yes. So as I told you at MICA, it was triggered my interest
Mm.
in doing marketing research about marketing. It was triggered at MICA, and then I joined market research, which was commercial research.
Hmm.
So I always like knew at that time that I will enjoy being in the field of research, because research is about exploring. It has that intellectual satisfaction that I derive out of this whole research process, and just trying to find answers. And even as a child, I used to enjoy solving puzzles, different kinds of puzzles and Sudoku or whatever you have. And I feel it's like research to me is more like play than work. I never ever found any of my work boring or tedious. So research had always kept me engaged. But I think I after working in the industry for 3 years, I felt like wanted to elevate the my level of research to move from commercial research to academic research,
Hmm.
and they are completely different worlds. So
Hmm.
commercial research is more I would say time bound, client driven, deadline driven, and you don't get enough time to go deep into that topic. It's more, I would say, it is kind of stops at a little transactional level. Like you have just one particular question, you just answer it, and there's a lot of maybe a little bit of trial and error that happens. So there's no not that very deeply grounded in theory and those aspects. So I really there were a lot of projects that I worked on at my job, really interesting projects. But I wanted to like go much more ahead, like go one step ahead, go deeper into some phenomena like abstractions and things like that. So then I thought it's a good next step is to get into academic and do some more of fundamental level research. So that's why decided to apply for a PhD program, because that's the way to get into academic research. And then I applied, and basically I applied to IIM Bangalore because I wanted to be in India and do it from India. And IIM Bangalore is like one of the top places to do a PhD in India.
Take it fast forward now. So you finished your PhD. I'm sure it must have been a very happening, full of sorrows, full of joys, full of friends, full of coursework, full of some academic projects and term papers and all. We all see that these journeys ultimately are reflected when we publish. Okay, so A stars or FT50 we all crave for. So I would
Yeah.
like to know from your journey, like those long nights, those rejection emails, what are your stories around it? How did you handle?
Yes. So yeah, so my PhD journey, I think one word if I have to use for the journey, I would say it was an enriching journey for me. So it was and because I came from the commercial research into academic research, it the main conversion that I went through was to like to slow down, because commercial time research is like quite fast and you see the results very quickly. But in academic research, it's not that. Like it will take years and years for you to even realize whether what you have done is even worth it or not. You're just putting in your time and effort into a like into a kind of a black hole, and you don't know what will come out at the end of the tunnel. Like the tunnel is so long that you don't know whether there's a light at the end of the
At
tunnel.
the end?
So
Uh,
even till one day before I received the acceptance mail on this paper, I wasn't sure what's going to happen. So
uh,
it's that, so that mindset is something which I learned through the PhD process. And one more thing which I really learned through my journey is to develop that thick skin,
mhm,
because this rejection and as in you might just see one output like that, I've got one A star at the end. But I during the last year, like few years during my PhD journey, I have worked on like three, in fact four papers,
mhm,
like which I wanted to and like target at a top journal. So out of those four papers, there's one which has got published, and then there are three which out of two are in the file drawer. What they say, like they got rejected. Like one of it got I got an opportunity to revise, but even after that again it just got rejected. So it didn't make through the whole
uh-huh,
tunnel. So,
uh-huh,
but you would say it's fine. A hit rate of one out of four ending in a top journal is a good enough thing.
uh,
So I'm like, it's not always 100% success rate. So there are failure stories as well, and I have had conversations with like editors of top journals. They say they themselves have had
might
papers getting rejected every other day.
it's
So
the
it
same journey
happens
all
to
through.
everyone.
I think
The
it's
same
the same.
journey with
Yes, yes.
everyone.
Everyone
And it
experiences.
was to be, and I've seen this a lot with Indian academic, like PhD students, mainly. We try to put everything into the paper. Indian culture is like that, like we want everything, ye bhi chahiye, wo bhi chahiye. So we try to put everything, and then the paper gets so complicated. Then usually top journals don't like such papers. So you need to focus on just maybe like a simple model, but
Mm.
show that replicate it in multiple ways and
Mm. Okay,
really
on the
bring.
contrary, they helped you to design, to restructure, to refine your
Yes,
work
they
so that
asked the right questions, the
they
right
are the right
critique,
questions. Yeah.
and then it
Yeah.
got us to thinking.
Mm.
Because when I submitted the first draft of the paper, even I was not sure whether it's good enough for a JCR. But my co-author was like saying, no, it's a really cool idea.
Work.
But
Okay.
they still were moving parts, but we took that gamble. Like we thought,
Great.
let's
Great.
see, even if it gets rejected. Yeah.
So let's move to the next part now, because that is because you are a early stage researcher, and specifically, I want to know from you. Have you seen any difference between male and female researchers, specifically when we are designing our research career, and especially in the early stages? Because you have experienced motherhood during your PhD, and then
Yes.
you entered in your high demanding researcher role during the same
Yeah.
time. So, how did this affect?
Yeah. So from I think based on my experience and observation, I
Hmm.
think there is a systematic gender difference in this field.
Okay.
Is puts women at a systematic disadvantage, which is in terms of their ability to have access to discretionary time.
Hmm.
Because when it comes to academic research, the main resource that the researcher has is their time.
Hmm.
There's nothing else, right? Basically, it's your time. But when it comes to women, and especially I think the age group that women fall into when they're entering the PhD program or in that process are, I think, on average, people who are married and are in that age where they're contemplating to maybe have a child, or they maybe have a child, or they might be just getting married, like they're in that age group, right?
Mm,
Maybe in their
mm,
late 20s to their
30s. Mm,
late 30s, right? So in
mm,
that range, I think, is that life stage,
mm,
early career life stage. It falls into that socially, and uh, and it is a question that a lot of women, I think, go through, whether to have a child during PhD or not, or even after, any just after PhD, when you're in your early career, should you have a child or not? And I haven't, even when I planned and I had a child after, basically I planned to have a child after finishing my comprehensive exam and before starting the main thesis.
mm.
So I took a 1 year maternity break in the middle
Okay.
of my PhD. And
Okay.
after 1 year maternity break, came back and then I started this paper. So it's 3 years. Basically, my child is 4 years old, and this paper is 3 years old,
Uh-huh.
right? So
So you have
I
two
started,
children now.
yeah, kind of, yeah.
Great. So you are
So
saying that there is a huge difference which is
there is
socially
a difference
constructed.
in terms of the discretionary time that is
Mm,
available to
mm,
women as compared to men.
mm,
uh, and I'm talking specifically in terms of I think married women,
mm,
or mothers. I
mm,
think because if I see, look at myself, like before marriage or before becoming a mom, then I didn't see that much gender difference in terms of the time, because I mean, I could whole day just work on my research, or I could decide what I want to do with my time.
mm,
But after becoming a mom, I can't like just whole day sit and do my research.
mm, mm.
I need
So
to
life becomes autopilot with the child. What's
uh,
your
which
son's name?
which is my son's name. Yeah, my son's name is Yuven.
Yuven.
Y
Okay.
Yuven.
Oh
Yeah,
wow,
Yuven.
nice name. Nice name. Anything you want to add in this aspect? Because a lot of
Yes, kind of that way. But I still feel that there is this whole notion of guilt, perennial guilt, that working mothers go through. And in academia, it's even bigger, because in academic research, it is you as an individual are deciding to work on something. It's not like a corporate job, right, where there's a
yeah.
deadline and you are supposed to meet it. So when you are choosing your own time, if you are choosing to say, okay, I'll work on my research instead of maybe tending to some other work at home, it'll add further to the guilt, because you are choosing that, not to do something else
Okay,
and
so
do
that
your.
is a counterintuitive argument because a lot of females choose teaching and research career just because they think that it will give us more time and more space to work with both aspects in
Yes,
life.
yes. So that is there. There is, I think, academic career gives you
Gives you.
more flexibility to partition your time,
Uh-huh.
and you don't need to physically like go to office and come back and all that. You can
Yeah.
that flexibility is there. But I also feel that in terms of the mind space that you give to research, because even if I'm playing with my kid, my son, at the back of my mind still I'm thinking about research, and sometimes that makes me feel guilty.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
even when I was attending like the ACR conference, early career workshops and all there, like people asked some of the really high achieving women scholars, saying like, what regret do you have from looking back at your life? And this, like, one of the scholars said that she has two kids who are like 17, 18 years old now, and she says when she looks back, she feels guilty that she couldn't spend that much time with their children.
Hmm.
So but when I listen to such things, I feel like I'm still very young, and my child
Hmm.
is still very small. So I don't want to kind of skew too much that I don't spend my time at all with him and stuff. So try to integrate and spend equal time on both, because research is also like a child,
Uh-huh.
and you're nurturing that child also.
Uh-huh.
It's you're letting it grow, like a, maybe not a human child, but it could be maybe like a garden or a plant that you're growing, right? So you can't
So
ignore both.
you are nurturing your research and your child both, right?
Yeah.
So
Yes.
let me tell you, Tanvi, you are going to be a role model for many now because it's like an achievement which we all aspire, and we really want to have an A star, that too in a 50-50. And um, why I'm calling you a role model, because it came in your life, 50/50 came in your life in a very early stage, and this is your first paper which is published in A Star and 50/50. What would be your one key advice to young researchers? Because we are celebrating International Women's Day, so I'm specifically asking you this question. Her research. So her research is a tag which we are going to use. So tell me what one piece of advice which you are going to give to young researchers who are females.
Yes. One main advice I would give is that you embrace vulnerability. Okay, as it just I've seen this pattern again askew
Hmm.
in gender, where I've seen female scholars being more afraid to share their work in public, like, and fear more about it getting ripped apart. So I think that thing we should female scholars should really be more open to sharing your work and let it get ripped apart, and that's actually going to help to strengthen your work further. And also this whole nurturance aspect that we talked about, right? So I
Hmm.
think that's a strength, and women scholars have like they are by culturally wired to be good researchers, I think. Because they have that nurturing capacity.
Hmm.
Especially I'm talking about like women in like the Asian and the Indian cultures, where if you look at some other cultures, even men are like that. For example,
Okay,
my
so
father.
Tanvi, I was having this very interesting discussion with Professor Preeti Shroff, because we have an
Yeah,
interaction with
yeah,
her as well. Very interesting observation which she had, and I have been also having that observation that from the early childhood days, especially females are not allowed to ask questions in our culture,
yeah,
and
yeah,
that again restricts us asking more questions and finding answers. And what you are saying is altogether a counterintuitive side of that, like because you are if you are doing research, you are a better human. And if you are doing research in terms of you know uh, because when you become a mother, then you are becoming a good researcher as well. So those kind of these are some counterintuitive thoughts which I'm getting, maybe because of our own experiences in our lives. So
hmm,
yeah, so coming from the same background, Micah, and she's also a Mican and you are a Mican, so I think these are coming from the
yeah. No,
experiences
but
which
I
we.
think what Professor Preeti has said is right, because that is again, it kind of links to what I am saying also, where because women have been like in a way conditioned not to
Hmm.
ask too many questions, or not to ask too many big questions. Because if you look at like a JCR kind of a publication, the research question or the contribution needs to be much more fundamental and big.
Hmm.
If you are doing asking small questions, safe questions, then they might not go to a level of an A star.
Hmm.
So even in my paper, that cultural tightness, we have talked about that variable, right? So that variable is kind of like a new fundamental addition to consumer research as a field.
Hmm.
And I have had conversations about this variable with in a lot of conferences with people who work in this space, and almost everybody said that don't get into it,
Hmm.
at least as a PhD at this level. Don't get into it. It's tough, and you might not be able
Okay.
to pull it off and all. And
Uh-huh.
but then it is
You are
and
firm.
I know that women tend to receive such suggestions more often than men.
Hmm.
Where don't take too much risk, don't go too far and all that. But
Uh-huh.
I think women should take more, try and
Okay.
ask much more bigger questions in their research, try
Hmm.
out more new methods, and go outside the comfort zone. This comfort zone is something which I think women tend to be more happy in it. Like as in not happy also, like they're just more afraid of, even in general, right? In our society, we do women I you won't find women going out alone, going for a trip alone, because you're just little scared, right? It's not a very friendly, happy,
Hmm.
safe place for women. So
Hmm.
it comes in research also. You don't want to go into that scary, risky territories even in your research.
Hmm. Hmm.
But I
Hmm.
think you should, and
Hmm.
be
Hmm.
surprised that you'll
Hmm.
actually
Hmm.
find something. And as in, even if it gets ripped apart on the way, it's okay.
Okay, then we tell me more about your ACR work because you have got that Shape Foundation Fellowship as well. Tell me more about
Yes.
that work.
Yes. So when I had started developing the idea for this paper 3 years back, at that time I had come across this ACR Shade Foundation Dissertation Award where they
Hmm.
had this special track on cross cultural research.
Hmm.
So because my idea was fitting into cross cultural research, I thought of submitting it. So I wrote up the idea as a proposal and I submitted for the award.
Hmm.
Like just after three months of working on that idea, I submitted it as an proposal, and then after a few months, like I actually received that award.
Hmm.
And as anyone, that was more like I wasn't sure whether I'll get the award or not, but and I think it was the first time that somebody affiliated at an institute in India got that award. And ACR is like a top conference in the world for
Hmm.
on consumer research,
Hmm.
and it was a like a PhD student from India got that award. And I remember like when the award was announced, my colleague was there in the audience. So they announced like Tanvi Gupta from Indian Institute of Management, Bangalore. So he said like he felt goosebumps because when they heard about Indian being announced on the
Indian
stage.
Institute of Management, right?
So even it was like a very nice moment because
Huh.
as in a publication is of course better,
With the
but it
moment you are
doesn't.
saying, I am also experiencing the same thing, same goosebumps, I think.
The winner is Tanvi Gupta from the Indian Institute of Management in Bangalore, and her advisor is Avinash Moki.
At that conference, that whole
Huh.
at that ball, like a 1,000 people sitting, and
Hmm.
when they announced it, and I went and took the award. So
Okay. Thank you, Tanvi. It was really nice interacting with you, and I'm sure your experiences are going to be very insightful to young female researchers who are, aspiring to publish, aspiring to give good context to research domain. I'm sure. I think it is going to be very helpful. Thank you so much for taking your time out on a Saturday, and I'm very very thankful to you. Thank you.
yeah, thanks a lot, Anita. Yes.
Press the bell icon on the YouTube app and never miss another update.